All right, we're going to get started. It's 12 o'clock noon, and I want to thank everybody for being here that's here in person, as well as everybody that's on the call virtually. So we have a good group here in person, and I'd like to thank the Ocean City Library for hosting us here. They do a great job, and those of you that are here in person, they provided lunch for you today, and it smells delicious. So enjoy that. Those of you that are there on Zoom, welcome. And maybe if you get a chance, you can come over and have some yummy lunch one day with us in person when we do these classes. We are doing this as a series, and we will be coming, I think it's through November, we're coming, I'll be out to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. So if you haven't joined us before, this is your first time, I hope you'll join us again. There is a sign-in sheet going around the room for the people that are here in person, if you'd kindly sign in, so I have a count for that. And then there's some goodies in the back of the room. We have some resources that from our office, and we have plenty of resources and things that are offered by Rutgers Cooperative Extension. So I'm going to get underway. We are going to be talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness today. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Rutgers Cooperative Extension and the structure is that we are a partnership between the County Board of Chosen Commissioners, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And Rutgers Cooperative Extension currently has faculty throughout the state of New Jersey in every county. So you either have faculty or staff. And we're composed of 3 departments. We have Agriculture and Natural Resources, 4-H Youth Development, and then my department, which is Family and Community Health Sciences. And in Community and Family and Community Health Sciences, we try to provide outreach to people in New Jersey and beyond on topics that are related to nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness, which is our topic today. And like I said, we have websites, we have a Facebook page here in Cape May County as well as statewide. There are fact sheets on there, articles, recipes, all kinds of great things, information about upcoming classes that we have, both in person and virtual. So feel free to check those out, and I'll and they are on the back of my information up there, and then we'll be sending an email out to everybody after the class with more resources. Of course, Rutgers Cooperative Extension is an affirmative action equal opportunity employer. All right, so let's get started. Is it cut off? Nope. So today's topic, like I said, is the 8 dimensions of wellness. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on intellectual wellness. And for those of you that are here in the library, you're already checking a box. You're in the library, you have great resources here and a good way to find intellectual wellness. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. This presentation was written by my colleague, Jennifer Shakaitis. And we have worked on the 8 dimensions of wellness curriculum together. And we have created this curriculum that we're hoping people will use to take out and teach. We have some folks that are interested in it across the nation to use as in different capacities. So that's why we brought that together. So it's not just being taught here in New Jersey, but across the nation, hopefully. The 4 objectives for today's class are to identify the dimensions of wellness. So we'll go over that for those of you that might be new, or give a refresher to those of you who might have joined us before. We're going to define overall wellness. We're going to understand how the 8 dimensions of wellness interact with one another. And we're going to hopefully create positive balance. You're going to hear me say the word positive a lot today. And that positivity in our life can really change the way we think about things and kind of beget more positiveness. So we want to be positive. And then we're going to discover ways to achieve, maintain, and improve our overall wellness. One of the important things that we'll talk about today, too, is how interconnected all the dimensions of wellness are. So try to keep an eye out for that, because maybe if you're not feeling so great in one aspect of wellness, it might be related to another aspect that you're not recognizing. So let's talk about wellness. Currently, wellness industry, it's a $4 trillion business. So it's big bucks. People have really latched onto this idea of wellness. But what does it mean? What exactly does it mean? If you search the term wellness, you might see things like an image of a spa or somebody doing yoga or having a yoga class. I see somebody here in person has a yoga mat. So working on wellness, right? That is something that falls into the the program of wellness. You might see people meditating, and maybe even some oil, like essential oils ads, right? I always joke, and people that have been in the class before, I have seen everything under the sun advertised. I think I pay special attention now. Some a car like that said that if you bought the car, you'd have greater wellness. I don't know how, but maybe it massages you, and I don't know what it does, but there's a lot of things, and again, that term wellness has really become a big encompassing thing. What is it? What does it include? It's a little ambiguous, so we're going to look at that today and try to determine what it is and if there's a definition. But it turns out there is a definition. And that definition was created by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, or SAMHSA. SAMHSA is a big leader in the mental health and prevention industry. They're a .org. I always tell people, make sure you're looking for .org and .edu information so that it's verifiable. And we used their premise to create this curriculum, and they really take a holistic approach to the meaning, which means that it's not based on one idea, but it's based on the functioning of several concepts that create this balance. And it's important to remember that the model that they created includes those 8 dimensions, and those 8 dimensions create that holistic approach. And holistic obviously is including everything, being well-rounded. Okay, so here's the 8 dimensions on the screen now. And again, it's become a very frequently used and often vague term, but the definition that SAMHSA has for it, that they defined it is and envision it is, as not the absence of disease, illness, and stress, but the presence of a positive purpose in life, satisfying work and play, joyful relationships, a healthy body and living environment, and happiness. So I said before, you were going to hear me say happiness, positivity a lot. And that's where this is coming in, is right in the definition. They're telling us we want to be positive. Now, again, today we're going to be looking at intellectual wellness, which I'll give you the specific definition of. But as you sit here, some of the folks in the audience, and I'm sure some of the people on the Zoom, have been in one of these classes before, one of the 8 dimensions of wellness before. So I just want, at the end of the class, I ask you to set goals. And because we're at the point in these lessons, I just want you to think about your own wellness a minute and look at the 8 dimensions and try to think about where you feel strongest. So just take a minute and think about where you feel strongest, like which dimension that's up there. And if you're new, that's fine. We're going to learn more, but just try to think about that a minute and see what you think. All right. So now that you thought about which dimension you feel strongest in, think about which one you might need a little bit more positivity in, or maybe you don't pay enough attention to. So think about that too. All right. Now, as we go through and talk, I want you to think about how I keep referring back to positivity, but also keep thinking about how they're interrelated. So if you're, for example, maybe not feeling, we're doing intellectually, if you don't feel intellectually well, what other dimensions do you feel strong in that could complement that? Okay, so think about that. Is it your spirituality? Is it your physical? We're going to talk about how physical wellness can help your intellectual wellness. You might not think the two go together, but they do. So just think about how you might help one of the strong points, or what your strength is, to influence that one that isn't the strongest of your dimensions. All right. Okay, so this is a list of the 8 dimensions of wellness in alphabetical order. There's no priority one over the other. Intellectual's right in the middle, just because it's an I, and that's where it is lined up there. But you'll notice in the definition here, I just wanted to pull this up, recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. So an important part of the 8 dimensions of wellness and trying to maintain wellness is that we want to make sure that we recognize, just like I had you do, what our strengths are and where we might need a little bit of improvement. So think about that and use that word recognize. Sometimes you'll hear me say mindfulness, be mindful of of something or be positive about it. They're all words that are reflected frequently in these definitions. Things that pop up frequently in the definitions you'll see here: satisfying relationships, pleasant and stimulating, satisfaction, recognizing, knowledge, enrichment, need, connection and belonging, support system, and purpose. So they're things that reoccur throughout these 8 dimensions and that you'll hear me say repetitively for these definitions. Another part of wellness, overall wellness, is that we want to make sure that we create balance. So you see here the balancing act. This is another thing you see a lot, this picture when you search out wellness. And that's because an important part of well-being is the balance of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And it's kind of like this balancing act that's going on here in the picture, because what I consider balance is going to be different than probably everybody else in the audience. So we all have our own levels of balance. It's all going to look different for everyone. So that's why it's important to be mindful and to recognize what's going on with you, because it's going to look different for everybody. Everybody's had different situations growing up. They are currently in a different situation. So everybody's going to look a little bit different for their balance levels. It is also a constant balancing act. So sometimes it's exhausting, right? But it's worth it. It's good to revisit and rebalance from time to time too. So recognize that things might get a little out of whack, out of balance for your wellness, but revisit it and see how you can get back there. I know a lot of times for me, physical wellness is very important because it helps my emotional, my intellectual, my spiritual. It helps everything if I'm physically active, because I have less brain fog and anxiety if I am physically active. But if I stop doing that and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling so good. Like I have brain fog. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I didn't exercise today. So just like recognize those things and take time from time to time to rebalance them. And that balance that we're talking about can also have a ripple effect. So just like we have the 8 dimensions that are interrelated, one pings and it can ping out to the other ones, just like a ripple. When you drop of water in a pond and it ripples out, that positivity can ripple out to the other areas and dimensions of wellness, so that we're good to go. One of the things that SAMHSA says is important is that the intellectual wellness dimension involves things that keep our brains active and our intellect expanding. And that can involve looking at different perspectives and activities that are fun and interesting. So I feel like we're never too young to stop learning. And I always, when somebody says something, when I'm talking to somebody and they say, oh, they teach me about something, I always like to say to them, thank you very much. I learned something new, right? So we'll always have the capability to learn something new. There's a whole big world out there. And if you can learn something positive, that makes you feel positive, then that's a win-win, right? So we want to keep it positive and try to learn things that are new and keep our brains active and our intellect expanding. All right, so I say this every class, and I'm going to say it again. As we discuss the 8 dimensions of wellness, whether it's intellectual wellness or whichever one, it's important that you take small steps. So if you're feeling like your intellectual wellness is not what you would like it to be, don't dive in feet first and say, okay, Chris said to do blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do all of it today. It's not going to work. So take small steps, break things into little goals, so that you can achieve overall intellectual wellness. And then again, let that ripple out so that it's bigger and more expansive. All right, so why is intellectual wellness so important, and why are we focusing on it today? It's important because it supports, again, other areas of wellness, and it helps to keep us challenged. If our brains are challenged and we're thinking and moving, then we're going to be able to have better mental capacity. It's going to help to expand and prevent disease. So it's a really good, positive thing to do. It encourages us to be constant learners over our lifespan. And it also helps us with personal growth. It allows us to broaden our perspectives about others as well. And we'll talk a little bit more. We talked about that in spiritual wellness, about how it's important to have conversations with people about their spirituality, because again, it helps you learn. but it also helps you in intellectual. And additionally, again, there's dimension overlap, and a lot of intellectual wellness could support other area of wellness. So for instance, intellectual wellness may include exploring positive conversations with others, and that could help your emotional and your social wellness. Being out and about, they found that, social wellness is really key. Social interaction is very, very critical. They're even prescribing social wellness to social interactions with seniors sometimes. So you go to the doctor and they'll say, how are you socializing? And the doc will write prescriptions for social interaction. So it's important, and having conversations and socializing is important. And that's intellectual wellness could expand those, both the emotional and the social wellness aspect. And that's really true over all 8 dimensions of wellness. They flow, ebb and flow, and help create that balance that we talked about in that slide that was a little balancing act there. All right, so within intellectual wellness, SAMHSA has identified 4 distinct areas, and they are personal interests, education, brain exercise, and conversation. So, even having conversations with people and stimulates your intellectual wellness. Brain exercises have really gotten a lot of notoriety lately. And I think it's really important at this stage to say, there's things you can do on your phone. But sometimes it's good to detox from that too. I hear all the time, oh, you need to do a detox, like a, nutrition detox or whatever. And I do nutrition work too. But I think that the phone might be a better place to start sometimes with the detox, because, it is like become an attachment to our bodies now. And sometimes it's good because you can have those interactions, but do look at how you're doing it. It could be it could be a goal for your intellectual wellness. Look at how much I'm on my phone versus how much I'm actually out in public having social interactions. And along those lines, I know I was speaking to somebody that said their child had gone away to college, and that they were having a class, they have those freshman classes that everybody has to take. And one of them was how to have a conversation and look a person in the eye. So, and because we're glued to our phones. So just a little sidebar on that, but, think about those things, and think about what you're doing and how it's making you feel in a positive way. I go for a walk and it makes me have more energy, less brain fog. I'm on my phone and it's bringing me down because I'm looking at things that are bringing me down. So just do a little comparison again with that mindfulness, or that recognizing what you're doing. Oops, conversation didn't pop up. All right, so now that we have those areas broken out, the 4 areas, let's take a little better look at them and make some positive changes. Take a minute to look at them and understand them better. Personal interest. So you can expand on your intellect by sharing your intellect. So an example of this would be to share your knowledge in a workshop. So if you have a skill or something that you have expertise in, or you like to teach, you can either attend a workshop like you're all doing now, or maybe even teach that. I speak to a lot of retired teachers, and, they say, oh, I would love to teach. I knew Spanish. I'd love to teach Spanish, to beginners or something like that. So if there is an expertise or an area that you have and you enjoy and you love, then try to find a place, like a library or somewhere, or church or some type of public, if you'd like to share that with others. And then again, attending a workshop is really helpful to that too. And that could support your emotional wellness or your intellectual wellness, and it could help you to teach others as well as learn from people. Because I always learn from you all. When I get emails afterwards, or I'm talking to you after class, I always learn from everybody. I'm like, I'm going to use that. So yeah, it's always good to have that conversation and take that information out. So how about reading? We're in the library. I said that when we started, right? So this is a great place. It doesn't, there's many, many ways to get reading apparatus now. I have an undergrad in literature, and I love a library. Like, I just love being in the library. It's a nice place to be able to chill. It's comfortable. It's cool on a hot summer day for the kids. If you want to take kids out, or, to introduce them to the library, and there's many, many great programs. So if you enjoy reading can be a great way to expand your intellectual wellness, and try to set time aside every day to do that, or a few times a week to do that. It can help you to, kind of, instead of watching TV, worry away your troubles. It helps you to develop new characters. You can expand on a topic you're interested in, or you could learn about new things that you might not have ever learned about. Or you could, do fiction or nonfiction. There's so many things. So read for fun or read to improve your intellectual wellness. And it's really going to help you work your mind and expand your thought processes. Then the next thing on the list here is to learn a new hobby or skill. So learning a new hobby or skill and being a constant learner in that way is important to maintaining our intellectual wellness. If there's something that you've always wanted to do, you have a specific interest in, or something that's outside of your daily work or your life routine, then take time to learn that. A lot of places will offer lessons on that, how to do it. If you have something that you love to do, then make the time to do it, and try to set that little time aside. I always tell people, put it in your calendar. I feel like if it's on your calendar, it's a reminder that you should do it, and it could really help you. If you enjoy reading, then maybe join a book club, or start a book club. I teach at the different libraries throughout the county, and I was at one day, and they had a sign up that they were starting a book club. So that's a fantastic way to, you're going to socially interact, so you're checking that social dimension, and then you're also going to be helping with intellectual at the same time. And then the last thing on the thing here, if you have an interest and have ever explored information about it, then attend an event that supports that interest. I'm going to give you some ideas here towards the end on how to do that to help your intellectual wellness. But it might be something like, if you always loved model airplanes growing up, maybe you go to an air show, and you talk to other people that have interest in those things. So that's just an example, but you've had these interests in things, and I feel if you can really expand on them, then it could be really beneficial. So for education is the next area of intellectual wellness. And so take a class, investigate a class to learn a new skill, or simply learn about something that interests you. We talked about that a little bit. And again, these overlap as well, but just having that ability to take a class. If you're retired, it's a good opportunity, and we'll talk about places that we can do that. And the other place is professional development. Now, I know sometimes people have to go for CEUs or professional development, and I have to go to professional development, but think about doing something that maybe doesn't check a box once in a while, so that you have to go to this professional development. Maybe it's mandatory, but maybe there's other things that you can do that can help. I know even sometimes reading a professional development book is good, and it can expand in so many different ways. I was asked to be part of a book club, and we read a professional leadership book, and it helped me in my professional world, but it also really helped me in my personal world to kind of gauge how I felt about different things and how I handled myself in certain situations. So sometimes those professional development classes could help your professional intellectual wellness as well as your personal intellectual wellness. And with the professional development, sometimes you can get the employer to pay for that. So if you are still in the workforce and you're interested in that, then check on ways to have it paid for that way. Okay, and next we have brain exercise. And this has gotten a lot of, had a lot of light shown on it recently. But it's important because just like it's important to physically work our body, it's also really important to work our brain, also a muscle. So we want to, make sure we're working that too. The evidence is a little inconclusive as to whether or not like crossword puzzles prevent age-related memory loss. But it does help us to stay engaged in interest in things. It has a little challenge to it. So I wouldn't say just because the evidence isn't really hard to not do them. I think it's a good way to engage yourself in puzzles and things like that. And having challenges in, like a challenge to do something professionally could be a good thing for you. Playing memory games is a good way to be stimulated as well. And another thing that stimulates your memory and as a brain exercise, sometimes I have a friend, I don't know, I remember the simplest of things from like grade school. Like somebody will call me and say, "Oh, who was that person that, you had your picture taken with?" I'm like, "Oh, you remember so-and-so from fifth grade, and she used to carry a blue comb in her back." They're like, "Why do you know this?" So I remember things that probably should have no use for. But having those conversations with friends, family members, just bringing up, they make that socialization and intellectual wellness, like having those conversations. Like I'll text my cousins once in a while, "Hey, remember when Pop used to do this?" And then it blows up into this whole thing over days. So I think that having the ability to have those conversations also inspire your intellectual wellness and trigger your memories. And that can be a really positive thing, emotionally, socially, across the board with your wellness. Another way to do that is to stay current on events in a healthy way. I just had I know, used to be good. Well, here's an example. I'll give you an example. So I've heard that there is a young lady that sits on a bench on the boardwalk. I see her on Saturday mornings, and she's very pleasant and talks to everybody. She's very social. And so the newspaper is going to run a story on her and how she sits and talks to everybody. She's adorable. I think she's 94 or 96 or something like that. Yeah, God bless her. So I had heard that they're trying to do a story on her because she's dressed to the nines and she's happy. But that is just sitting on that bench and talking to people. That is, intellectual wellness. Now she's going to be a current affair, so that's a positive thing, right? So if you see her, if you're up there and you see her, you got to say hello. But this is looking at those positive stories. If you notice on the nightly news, this is the only story I usually care about. It's usually something really positive because they try to end us on a positive note. So I think that, thinking about those positive notes of current affairs is a good way to go. And try to stay up on things that way. And if you feel like things are weighing you down, then change up what you're doing. If it's not hitting you in a positive way, the current affairs, then try to find another outlet or talk to other people that have like-minded thoughts as you do. You can discuss those current affairs with family and friends, again, in a positive way. So it's not, food flying at the Thanksgiving dinner about politics, but try to be positive and, share your personal interest and be positive around those current events. Yeah, okay. Social interaction. So I just kind of mentioned this a little bit a second ago, but have that social interaction, common themes, strike up conversations. And if you haven't seen the social dimension of wellness presentation yet, I'm not sure. Did we do that one yet? Did we do social? I don't think we did social here yet, but I do have recordings of that up, so you're welcome to check that out. But the social interactions, again, have a really big bearing on our intellectual wellness because it keeps our mind moving and thinking, and it's a positive thing. And I know that a lot of times they're trying to get, where my mom lives is a 55 plus, and they have all kinds of social interactions, and it's so important because it gets her out of the house and it gets her acting and talking with other people and interacting with them. So it's a positive thing for your social wellness to have that social interaction. So it's social and intellectual wellness. All right, and then conversations. I've alluded a little bit to this in the other ones. As I said, they overlap. But conversations can really help us gain an enhanced understanding of issues, and it opens our minds to viewpoints that maybe we didn't consider before. And it's an important part of improving and maintaining our intellectual wellness. And you don't have to have the same opinion as somebody else. I was at a basketball game. This is years back when my kids played, and a kid got thrown into the wall. And I yelled, "Ref, you got to call that." And the guy sitting next to me is like, "He's just let him play." So we started having a little banter back and forth. My husband's like, "You're going to get me in a fight here, lady." Because I'm talking back and forth with the guys, but we were very respectful of one another. And I said, "Listen, I have 3 sons and they're in sports. And I don't have them here. I have them here to learn sportsmanship and, be coachable and be good people." And he sat and listened to me. It was a very respectful conversation. And even though we had extreme opposite viewpoints, we were respectful. We had discussion about it. And that was good intellectual interaction. And we were able to see each other's points from it. So just remember, even when it's a little heated, you want to stay, that positive and engage in stimulating conversation and debate, and make sure that you're doing things that are, reflecting your opinion respectfully as well as the others. So good positive conversation is a starting point for intellectual wellness. And it helps us gain that appreciation. Like I said, I understood his point of view and he mine afterwards. So be open-minded, kind, respectful, and have those discussions and debates with people. And remember, the SAMHSA definition of wellness included that positiveness. So they're wanting you to have that as you have these debates and conversations. All right, so now that we have heard about the 4 areas of intellectual wellness, let's look at some positive ways to implement these concepts in our lives. We talked a little bit, added some, but let's add some more key aspects to them. And like I said, personal interest can make us more eager. Our personal interest will make us more eager to learn and expand our intellectual wellness. So think about teaching a language. If you have ever done, if you know another language, or maybe even how to sew, volunteer to sew. I have a friend that used to do the same job I do she was in Atlantic County and she was part of a sewing group. And she learned to sew quilts from that, and then they would donate the quilt. So that's positive social interaction, intellectual wellness. Or you could volunteer to teach it if you're really good at it. And I'm sure people would really love that. Needlepoint or other hands-on activities also really good for our intellectual wellness. And it's a great thing for you to share your talents that way if you have those skills. And there's so many more that are out there. If you are really strong in a subject, consider tutoring a student in that subject area. Find a place to teach a class like a library. We talked about that one already, or an organization in need of your talents. Share your talents, share those great skills that you have, and everyone will be thrilled that you did. And you get intellectual wellness from it, and you're sharing the wealth of intellectual wellness. Many not-for-profit organizations thrive and depend on volunteers. So, excuse me, check out your local museum, the senior centers, cooperative extension offices, and see where there's clubs or places that you can volunteer to share your talents with others, or get education on your own, like you're attending the class today. We talked about reading quite a few times, so read to expand your intellects, and think about topics to read. We have magazines, blogs, books. There's so many newspapers, so many opportunities to read something and learn about it and get positive information from it. Consider becoming a member at the local library if you're not already, so you have access to those books and magazines and other things, events that they offer. And again, the local library, they're not paying me to say this, by the way. The local library is a great, wonderful resource for classes, and especially here in Ocean City, they have so many classes and opportunities for you to be able to expand your mind and learn about new things. And reading helps expand your mind. It's positive, and it's a good way to expand that intellectual wellness. New skills and hobbies, they're important as well to grow your mind and to keep you learning. So consider something like a creative arts class, such as drawing, maybe some pottery or photography. How about even maybe martial arts? There's great, Tai Chi is a great way to move your body. It's low impact. It has a lot of relaxing aspects to it. So learning something new like Tai Chi. How about improving your computer skills? The local college, county colleges often offer, in addition to the libraries, they offer computer skills and things like that you can learn sometimes online and sometimes in person. And a lot of times there's low or no cost to those things. And the libraries also do those. Rutgers actually offers free classes for senior adults to audit. So if there's something you like, say you're a history buff, right? You never went and took history in college or in high school or whatever, and you're really into history, then maybe look into taking auditing a class. So you don't have to pay for it if you're in that demographic that you can do that. Look at newspapers or web pages for activities. Is there a band playing? Is there a concert on the beach? Is there a movie being shown somewhere where you can go and check that out? Then look for those online as well. And share that and look at something you've always had interest in. So I always say this to people, we've moved a couple times. So when we moved to new towns, I always wanted to meet new people. So I tried new things that I never tried. So when we moved here to Ocean City, a while back, I decided that I was going to try crew. That was a fun adventure. My dad's like, "You're doing what at 6 o'clock in the morning?" But that was nice because I learned to do something new. It expanded my physical and my intellectual wellness as well as my social wellness because I got to talk to meet new people in town and do that. And one time I did scrapbooking. That was another thing I did. So just think outside the box. Think about something, you know, if you're good with your hands and you're crafty, maybe you want to try something like scrapbooking or knitting or something. So just think about what you would like to do. And then the other fun thing you could do is bring a friend, bring a family member or a coworker to something that you have interest in, like a lecture, a concert, or a play. I know a gal that I used to work with was really into poetry. So they would go over to AC and they go to like this poetry smash and her husband and take her husband along with her. So it was a date night and they would go over and you know, do the poetry. I don't know how thrilled he was, but Chris ran along. Again, the concerts are a good thing or play. I am amazed at some of the high school plays, the local theater plays. They are just magnificent. And I think that that's a really good way to expand your intellect as well. So look for those theater companies. A lot of times they're cost effective. You don't have to, you know, drive far to get to them, but look for ways you can do that as well. And as we mentioned, the computer class is another way. Or maybe, you know, maybe you want to learn about how to pay your bills better or, you know, different things that you feel when we talked about that initial, where do I feel like I could use a little more positivity in my dimensions. Maybe you take a class about that and see, you know, what you can figure out. All right. And then keys to education. Maybe you didn't have room for an elective in high school or college. You know, they always made you learn certain things and maybe you didn't quite love them. But consider taking that class now. Maybe that you're out of school, learn a new skill for you know, for your intellectual wellness. We talked about that a lot already. But try to find something new that will continue your education. It's a great way to learn new things. Look at the college websites for classes. Again, now we have the ability to do things online. It's magnificent. Classes for the, you know, the college classes for the public things, and cooperative extension is always a good resource for that. Some schools offer audit classes. I talked about that already, so you might want to check that out and see if you can get into those situations. Consider something that you've always wanted to learn. I know when my uncle retired, the first time out of 3 times he retired. The first time he retired, I just hope it's not like a hereditary issue because I'd like to be able to retire. But he retired a couple of times and kept going back. I think he was looking for more things to keep him, you know, involved. But he wanted to learn a new language. So he went out and found a Spanish teacher and learned a new language. So yeah, just something, you know, interesting. There's all kinds of apps and things like that out there where you can know or low cost learn new things. So look for those things that can help improve your skills and maybe even improve your first language skills or, you know, in addition to try to learning a new skill, because that might help you to communicate better and create that wellness for you in an intellectual area. And then we have professional trainings. We talked about that during the slide when we introduced it. And we talked about, you know, maybe even if you're doing the professional wellness, maybe even finding a new career path. And that can happen after retirement too. And again, that uncle is in a whole other area now. But I think that we have the ability, you know, we have longevity now and we're, you know, hopefully have the dimensions of wellness. We're doing well. Maybe find something new to do professionally. A lot of people too, I've noticed with younger generations now, they're like switching careers. Like they start out in one thing and then they move to another thing. And that's fine too. So look at those professional trainings at work that might help improve what you're doing now, or if you're volunteering, look for training opportunities. And again, volunteering is a great way to expand your intellectual wellness. Learn for fun, but find ways to learn and improve those things for yourself. All right, brain exercises. You can look for brain exercises, check out the local library, the bookstores. find topics of interest. Sometimes even the thrift stores have some cool old things that you can find to keep it low cost and interesting topics for you to look at. Some libraries have low cost or free books. You know, I think across the hall here, there's the free book section that you can grab some things. You can load them on your phone or your tablet too to read things. You can get newspapers online and in print now. I know sometimes they want to charge you, but if you go to the local library, sometimes they have a subscription to the newspaper. So you could log in with your library card and then get that newspaper for free through the library. So little tip. Something I learned from intellectual.
They have that.
Oh, they make you do it in the building? I think there might be some that you don't, but I don't know. I don't, yeah, not here. You got to come in the building. Okay. Well, then you're getting out and socializing. No, I'm just- There you go. Yeah, but there's ways around things, right? And you can get some of the national, I think the county library system has some of the national ones too, that you can do that with. We mentioned earlier some of the brain exercises you can do, experiment with brain and memory games. One of my favorite games to play with my kids, and I was so bad at this game. You know where you get the little cards, that memory game, and they have pictures on them and you flip them all over and then you have to, they always beat me. And I think I have a pretty good memory, but that's a good game. Like play with the grandchildren or play with your kids. Just doing those simple little games, do regular puzzles, crossword puzzles. They have the mats now where you can roll up the puzzles so they're not like all over the dining room table all the time. We even get like old boxes, like the thin boxes that you'll get like cases of soda or whatever. We'll get that and do small puzzles in it, and then we just slide it under the table so it's not out in the way. But things like puzzles, brain puzzles, obviously, but also regular puzzles help you stay sharp. We have so much technology now. You know, if I want to add something up, I just pull out my phone and take the calculator out and add it. So try doing that math on your own once in a while. As long as it's not like messing up your checkbook, but you know, try to do those things a little bit on your own so we're not so dependent, because that'll keep the brain moving too. Play games with friends and family to support both your social and your emotional wellness, as well as your intellectual wellness. Those games like dominoes, pinochle, like my mom learned how to play mahjong. I never say it right. Yeah, mahjong. So she learned how to play that, and she said, yeah, that's too much. But she learned, right? It was a new thing. It improved her intellectual wellness. So maybe a game that you used to play as a kid, get a group of friends together, play rummy, or you know, something that you used to play as a kid. I know Parcheesi was always a fun one, right? Like those old fun games, you know, find somebody that wants to do that. Checkers, chess, those kind of things. Again, we mentioned staying on current events. Is this going? No. Stay current on the current events in a positive way, reliable sources. Don't fall victim to repetitive bias news that can really, you know, it can lead to negative, and it just kind of snowballs from there. Try to find the positivity in things. Avoid social media that you're spending too much time on for nonsensical things, like, you know, there's the cat again, water skiing or whatever. It's really funny, but you know, after a while, after constantly doing it, it can really become repetitive and take away from some of these other things that support the social wellness and the emotional wellness and those things. I always say when we do the physical wellness, people are like, I don't have time to be physically active. And I'm like, okay, how much time did you spend on your phone? You know, so that I realized I took a lot of time off of my phone, because you know that gives you the count. You can get the count. Took a whole lot of time out when I got rid of social media. So saying you don't have time to do something else, it could be because you're spending too much time. So take a look at that. Be mindful of that. And challenge your mind by learning something new instead of brain numbing things that are just repetitive things. I said to somebody the other day, they said, oh, the funniest thing popped up, you know, and it was just what I was doing. And I'm like, I know, because they know everything you're doing. So they're sending you the stuff you look at over and over again. So you just keep looking. So yeah, they're on to us. So we need to be on to them. Oh yeah, it did. Oh, I'm clicking. Okay. So conversation, positive healthy, respectful conversation, debates that are positive, and have a mutual understanding on issues. Or if you have a different understanding of the issue, just a pleasant conversation about that. So make sure you do those type of things for your intellectual wellness to expand your mind. Find friends or colleagues that stimulate your mind, and you can engage in those interesting topics with. My husband, my mother-in-law, used to tell the kids when they were playing on the beach, they'd come back and say, I don't have anybody to play with. She'd say, go up to that kid and say, hi, let's be friends. So we always joke about the hi, let's be friends thing. And I think that especially the older we get, maybe it's a little harder, you know, if you're not in the same social circles. But if you're standing there talking to somebody or you're in a line, my kids are always like, oh my gosh, you talk to everybody. But if you know, it's good to have those conversations. And I have a friend who's retired. She talks to everybody. And she's like, well, I need a new friend at the grocery store. I made a new friend at the drugstore, you know, and she's walking out having these conversations. So take those opportunities. Maybe you make a new friend, find a colleague, but take them to do things with you. Just have conversations in a line or find a way to engage with them on interesting topics so that you're able to have that positive interaction intellectually. If you don't have a group of friends that you can engage with, again, try joining that club or organization that supports a hobby that you have interest in, like a garden club or a book club. We have, where are you? Garden club, right? Yep. So, and doing things, you know, a walking club, start a walking club. I know I have a friend that every day they have a group of women, they walk every day religiously. I see her coming up there. So I think if you have those interactions with folks that are positive and you have an interest in it, it's going to do something positive for you. If you're physically active too, it inspires your brain. It prevents, you know, having anxiety, depression. It takes away the brain fog. So the physical activity and the physical dimension of wellness can really impact that intellectual. So think about when you're thinking about clubs to join, again, think about where you were really good and where you need a little help and how can that help to support this intellectual wellness. And that's why I keep going back to it, because I want you to have the tools when you leave to do these things. Try to find a hobby that you have maybe a mutual interest in, like gardening or something like that. I know I've learned so much from gardening. I learned from my grandmother a lot because she grew up on a farm, but then I've started doing things on my own. So my husband's always like, what's eating that zucchini? And I'm like, I think it's some kind of boar. Let me look it up. So it's, you know, you can go find reliable information, have conversations or talk to somebody else. Maybe your neighbor's gardening too. Hey, is this happening to your zucchini? So have those conversations and find those things you love to do and share it with others and do it with others and look for reasons things are happening. Okay. If you don't have, and the other thing with the gardening subject, if you don't have a space to do it, look for a community garden, right? Because a lot of times if you don't have, and then you're going to have the social interaction and the intellectual interactions there. All right, so to review, I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation that each dimension can be affected by the others, and I've tried to really drum home on that, especially with intellectual wellness, because I think that, you know, physical and emotional wellness, they're rather easy. Like we can say, oh, I need to sleep more, I need to, you know, eat better or whatever. But I think intellectual wellness is sometimes a little more vague. So I've tried to hone in on that. But I want to give you some examples of how intellectual wellness some more can help impact your other dimensions and vice versa. So if you seek out ways to foster intellectual wellness, you're going to have social wellness, right? I talked about that a couple times. If you attend a lecture like this one, you know, the person sitting next to you, if you're going to say, hi, let's be friends. We have a common interest here. We're gonna talk. So try to do that occasionally. Your occupational wellness is also impacted, obviously, by your intellectual wellness. So being really sharp intellectually can help to expand your mind. It can help you to learn more. It can help you to have better volunteer or job opportunities. It could lead to a promotion. And occupational and social wellness can be impacted by our physical wellness as well as our intellectual wellness, because physical wellness, like I said, is if we're eating a good nutritional diet, if we're exercising, if we're sleeping well, that's going to make us have less brain fog, make us be able to intellectually expand ourselves and have the energy to get out and be social. So that's how some of the interrelations happens on those. All right, Brooke's gonna release the second poll for us on her end, and if you all could give a little scan, that would be great. Wait, I gotta get rid of that. There we go.
Do you have good old pencil and paper? I didn't bring my phone.
I know, that's okay. I'm gonna say, if you can't get it on here either, if hopefully you signed in and left your email address, I email out not just this, but other resources.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have, and some of the resources, if you don't want the paper model that's here, I send them out electronically, so you can just click on them and read them too. Okay. Yeah, there's a sign-in sheet. Yeah, if you came in and you didn't sign in, if you could, that would be great.
I don't know if that's too big. My phone.
It's not, it's not, okay. All right, thanks for letting me know. I'll send it out afterwards, but thanks for trying. Could be.
And if you have an iWatch, she and I are just hitting one another at 10 minutes of the hour around the clock. If you have your watch on, it's gonna tell you to stand up.
That's true, right?
So right when
Well-
you were talking about physics.
Well, then stand up, stand up. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm always the person in the back of the room at these things standing because I can't sit still. But I love, right, those little, like the electronics are, I kind of bashed them a little bit today, but they're not horrible. Like there's really positive things that come from them. So the thing like standing up, being, we know that sitting all the time and being sedentary is really not good for our bodies. So that reminder from your phone or from your watch is a good thing. All right. So before, let's just sum up here a little bit. We covered the 4 areas of intellectual wellness today. They involve personal interest, education, brain exercises, and conversations. So as you go out and think about how you want to improve your intellectual wellness, then think about these 3 areas and some of the reoccurring themes that we've seen throughout, like interacting with others in a positive way, educating yourself in various areas of interest as well. And then we're going to talk about doing a little goals activity here. So we said, oh, why did it go forward? Oh, it is up there, sorry. We learned about intellectual wellness, and I said in the beginning, we wanted to do little steps one at a time so that we're not overwhelmed. But you want to be mindful of the way you feel in the area of intellectual wellness. Remember that the definition is recognizing creative abilities, right? We talked about those hobbies. And finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. So some of it is using resources at our hands to find those ways to expand our knowledge and skills. And when I teach in the classroom, sometimes, I'll teach my plate to the kids or something, and they'll see it hanging on the wall and they'll write it down on their paper, and somebody will say that he's cheating. I'm like, no, he's using his resources. So as adults, we have a lot of resources out there, and use your resources to be able to do those things to expand your knowledge and your skills in intellectual wellness. So I'm going to ask you for this goals activity again to think about where, don't make a goal yet. Just think about where in intellectual wellness you might need, you might be able to do some goal setting and to help your intellectual wellness. And as you do that, we're going to use the SMART method of goal setting. I always like to use this example. So SMART means it's specific, measured, attainable, realistic, and timely. And to do that in intellectual wellness, a little example here, a lot of writing, for the specific area, for better intellectual wellness, I'm going to pursue a hobby I have interest in. Okay, so that could be the specific goal. The measured part of it is I'll do this hobby twice a week. So you're committing to it. Remember, when you're setting goals, it usually takes about 6 weeks for something to stick, especially if it's healthy. So you don't give up on it. Like, oh, I said I was going to do that and I didn't do it. So revisit it, go back to it. If that measure is not being met, or maybe reduce it if might be too big. For attainable, although I have interest in this hobby, I need to learn more about it. So I'm going to attend a cooperative extension class on the topic. So you're going to look for a place that you can learn more about it so it is attainable. You're going to be realistic. I will start doing my hobby and take small steps each week to add to what I know and examine the need, what I need to do and learn more. And then timely, I will start on my new hobby at the beginning of next month. when I have more free time. And I think that the timely part is always really critical when you're setting a SMART goal. Because I tell people, like, if you decide I'm going to start walking more. This is a good example. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to walk 4 times a week. And I'm going to start in January. Well, if you live in New Jersey, then that sometimes is not always a, timely goal. So think about that goal, what your time is and how what your time frame is. If you have a lot of things coming up on your calendar, then don't set a goal to start something new right away. Set a time for when you can do that. Okay. And then now that we understand the SMART goal and how to set a goal, let's set one that you can meet. So think about what you'd like to achieve for intellectual wellness using those SMART goals and that method, and revisit this goal if you're not feeling well intellectually. Again, remember in the beginning, I said you need to revisit these things for balance. So once you feel you've mastered the goal, add another one, and then remember to reevaluate your overall wellness regularly. Attend the other dimensions of wellness. I don't know which one's next. It's on there's a flyer up there. Social. Oh, see, I said, did we do social yet? Right. So social wellness will be the next one in September. Yikes, it's September. Yeah, we'll do social in September. So try to attend another class, but as you go away today, think about the goals you've made in the past if you've been here, but then think about today and what you'd like to do. So when you come back next month, you're all excited about all the intellectual wellness goals you've hit. All right, so, and these are the references that we use for the classes. I'm going to take any questions that we have from the audience online first, Brooke, if there's anybody there, and then I'll come to the questions in the room.
No questions in the online chat.
Okay, anybody in the audience have a question? Yeah.
I noticed that there may be a few of us here who are retired. So what occupational wellness, how do you find that for someone who?
Yeah, so we did, was occupational wellness last month, maybe?
Great.
Go ahead. You have a great example.
Taking time off, like when I was working, I did that, I had money. And I realized since I retired, I've never had a day off. So now I have that goal, like it's like to do
And that could
something.
impact you in so many ways, yeah.
Yeah. So for the audience that's online, we talked about occupational wellness in that class, and one of the audience members that was there shared that she learned to take a day off as a retired person. So the question was, what as a retired person? Yeah, so taking a day off and having time for yourself. I always say I'm not giving those vacation days back, but set those times off when you're retired as well from whatever you're doing. You might help out with grandchildren, or you might go to volunteer or whatever, but make sure that you take off. And then the other thing we talked about when we were retired for occupational wellness, occupational wellness is not just about profession. It's also about things that we learn and things that we're doing, right? So we want to make sure if we're retired, and some people still continue to work, have little dabbles of jobs here and there, staying organized, having a reason to get up in the morning and get dressed, having a routine. I don't know. When I stayed at home with the kids and they were little, it was really easy to stay in pajamas all day. And then that can snowball. I mean, it's fun like once in a while, but it could snowball. So having that purpose, volunteering if you feel a lack of purpose, or being involved socially, attending classes like this, doing things to expand your intellectual and social wellness, going to, a senior center and doing stuff like that, going to bingo, going to play cards or something, having those things, they can fall into that, that occupational wellness dimension. So, even though it's not like, specific, like get up every day, 9 to 5, put your jacket on kind of thing. It could definitely have that expansion there too. So having in that dimension, I think that routine, like you're saying, time off, time to just think. My department chair is always like, you need a day to think. Sometimes you just need to think and plan, and it's hard to do that when you're constantly doing the same things over and over again.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there a local Rutgers campus?
Yeah, so the question was, is there a local Rutgers campus? So there is a campus to take classes at Atlantic Cape Community College in Mays Landing. There are some Rutgers classes there. And then my office is in Cape May Courthouse in the extension building. So we offer classes to the community. So our job is to, like I said in the beginning, is to come out to teach the community like I'm doing to all of you, with you all now. But there is a Rutgers Cooperative Extension in every county throughout the state of New Jersey. And we all have different areas that we cover. Yeah.
And there's also the SAGE program. After age 60, you don't pay tuition.
Right.
They have it at ACCC.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know they have that. Yeah, so
You
there's
can take a class. I took a master's art class. Great.
awesome. Did they do it?
It's today at Cape Community College. They have, it's by the zoo in Cape May County. It's in Mace Landing.
It's 355 South Dennis Road, because that's where we're out in front of there. That's where my office is. Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
right behind us. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like anything that you want to take you, but the students all sign up first, so they're not losing the class.
Right, so
And
then
then
you
you
can
take what's, after they're all signed up, then you can register.
That's great to know. So I just want to tell the group online, in case they didn't hear that at ACCC, there's SAGE classes, so that if you're,
There's no tuition.
there's no tuition over 65, is it?
After age 60.
After age 60. Yeah, so there's no fees if you would like to take those classes.
I have a couple of other resources that I don't feel like people know about. There's a program called FELS, which stands for Friends of Encore Learning of Stockton. And it's
Nice.
loosely affiliated with Stockton. You can look it up, FELS on the internet. And what
FELS.
it is they have classes that instead of having a class like for 6 weeks, they have classes like September through May, once a month.
Okay, so their class is once a month,
Classes are once a month.
and
You
it's
take-
FELS.
And sometimes they are Stockton professors. I'm taking a class right now from someone who, I don't think he taught at Stockton, but the class is called the Constitution.
There you go.
Now and, before. Whatever. So it's a class about the Constitution and current events. I took a class
go.
called Psychology of Everyday Relationships,
Oh, wow.
which was kind of interesting too. They also do the Great Decisions. They do that at some of the libraries, the Great Decisions class.
Uh-huh.
But I've also taken a class on film. Or
Right. So, right. And that's what I was saying. Like so you did film, Constitution, you've done a variety of things, and that's all expanded your
So that's
intellectual
at
wellness.
Felt.
Great.
And then also, if anybody has looked into it, I'm sure some people have, Cape May VOTEC
Mm-hmm.
has adult evening classes.
Yes.
And if you happen to be 60 or over, you can take any class for half price. So I learned how to play guitar.
Wow, you've done a lot. So the vocational schools is another great,
I
yeah.
play guitar in a group setting. I learned how to knit.
There you go.
They have exercise classes, they have meditation classes, they have all kinds of, they are evening classes. The FELS classes are daytime classes, the Cape May is knitting. Then I took learning how to knit, and there's a local church group that has a knitting club, sort of. And I only learned like knit and purl, but we do just make basic scarves using knit and purl, basic scarves and hats, and those things go to the Salvation Army in Atlantic
That's
City.
wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah, that's such a nice
So
thing. That's
learn
wonderful.
something new, and then join a group and it's a church, and you're also,
Yeah,
contributing.
that's great.
Not taking it home.
Yeah.
Not taking it home, because we have so much stuff at home, we don't need it.
Well, yeah.
That's environmental wellness. Yeah, they're great ideas. So just to share again, in case everybody didn't hear, the vocational school have things like knitting, and they donate it to the Salvation Army after they knit it with a knitting club. And also, yeah, that is great. And also the guitar lessons. I know they do some Zumba there, meditation classes. I think they do baking classes as well. Your dog behavior. Yeah, there's a lot of there's all kinds of wonderful things. And I feel like, those things are out there. You just have to talk to folks and find where they are, and get the resources for them. So they're wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. That's great. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Those of you online, thank you for joining. And I hope to see you next month, social wellness. So hopefully, and If you want to come for lunch, how was lunch?
Oh, excellent.
Excellent. See, it's excellent. If you're not here, you should be here. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.